Hello, my name is Paula Watson, a global tech disruptor, founder and managing director for Academy Achievers UK. We work with children and young people who are disaffected, disadvantaged, vulnerable, experience real trauma, and come from marginalised communities. We specialise in STEM and Web3 related activities. Our early years program in STEM and music, we offer the introductory to coding, where we teach HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, and we are leading on the global BME digital inclusion to raise 1 million global majority women and girls aspiration in STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths, and Web3 related careers. My background is that I'm an educator. I served as a NED, a director, leading on digital transformation. My background is I have a master's in information communication technology. I have an MBA in international leadership, and I'm also a serial social impact entrepreneur, where I'm championing the BME program because I want to create a pipeline of talent and ensuring that women and girls, in particular Black women and girls, are included in this whole amazing opportunity getting involved with tech. So today's my talk is on AI and diversity and inclusion in tech. Now, I am qualified to talk about this not only with my personal lived experience, with my qualifications, with my with the awards that I've won, and they range from the KPMG Black Entrepreneur Awards plus the cash prize around diversifying the tech space. I've also won the the Global Wintrade Award for Women in Engineering. I've won the Global Award for Changing Women's Lives. I've been nominated for quite a few. I've been nominated for the Women in Business Award, Women in Tech, and the National Diversity Award. So today I want to talk about artificial intelligence and diversity and inclusion in tech. What is AI? So I'm going to put my teacher's hat on today because I really want you to get something from this. But I also want to take you on a journey that, as well as I'm sharing my experiences, it's coming from an authentic place. And these are my experiences as to why, for me, AI is so important. So artificial intelligence is about perceiving, synthesizing, and inferring information, which is demonstrated by machines, as opposed to intelligence displayed by humans or by other animals. We can talk about, when we mention AI, we could talk about machine learning, natural language processing, or deep learning. But what I want to do, I want to just give you some everyday examples of AI that you probably are, you're used to it because it's all around us. So we could think about things like maps and navigation and how AI has drastically improved our traveling. Think about facial detection and recognition, text editors, think about chatbots, digital assistants, and even e-payments, and think about how you use that now in your everyday life. And that's literally AI. AI has been around for a very, very long time. And now we have the likes of ChatGPT. I know people are talking about the harmful effects, they're talking about the positive, but we're going to delve in deeper. So this brings me to my point on what do we mean by diversity and inclusion in tech. And I want to qualify this. I will explain to you the term diversity and inclusion, but I want to take you on a journey as well, using my personal lived experiences as to why AI and diversity and inclusion in tech is so important. So the D&I refers to how a company deliberately can cultivate a diverse workforce. So a diverse workforce consists of people from minorities, gender minorities, and women in certain tech roles. I want to, talk about when we mention about the different diverse of people in these tech roles. I'm referring to women of color. I'm referring to women who come with their different voices, with their different experiences, and how that can add value to an organization, and what does it mean, and how does AI play a role. But before I do that, I really need to explain to you and highlight the underrepresentation of Black women in the tech industry, and why it is such a significant topic to bring up and to really investigate and discuss further. So here are some data points that highlight the digital gap and the lack of diversity. So when we look at employment statistics, we see that according to the Office for National Statistics 2021, women make up only 17.3% of the UK tech workforce. However, the specific representation of Black women is not readily available. A study by the British Computer Society 2020 found that only 0.3% of women in tech industry identified as Black, Asian, or minority ethnic. When we look at education and degrees, we see that Black women are represented in computer science. And this, when we draw from the Higher Education and Statistics Agency, from the period of 2019 to 2020, we see that they revealed that only 1.3% of computer science graduates were Black women. And between 2019, 2020, and 2021, there was a small increase in the percentage of females studying science subjects, and that was about 45%. So the proportion of Black first-year undergraduate enrollment in science subjects has increased by 4% from 2019 to 2020. Another issue that I want to bring to your attention is the representation of Black women in leadership roles within the UK tech, and this is limited. In a survey conducted by The Guardian 2019, only 0.1% of tech executives in the UK were Black women. According to the Alison Rose Review 2023, it's provided insights on the progress made by women in business over the past 12 months. Most notably, 1/5 of new businesses founded in this time were established by women, which is good. So this is an increase of almost 20% from the previous period. So when I won the Wintrade Global Award for Women in Engineering, I had the opportunity to hear Alison speak on her Alison Rose Review in 2019, and she talked about a lack of representation of women, but she was talking from a perspective where all women in the UK. When I broke it down, I realized that Black women were just, there's just literally non-existent. So now, that's why now I welcome the Rose Review report now. And because I know that in that report, it identifies and quantifies the economic potential of more equitable representation of women in business. And they estimate that 250 billion could be added to the British economy if women's business input and support could match that of men. Just want to add to that as well. Mackenzie's report, where it talks about diversity matters, it also shares about having a diverse leadership team and how it will add economical value to an organization. So it's something that we really need to consider. Thinking about when we think about culture, for me, there are some concerns about the inclusivity and diversity of the UK tech industry, especially around the culture of it. So a study by the Inclusive Board 2018 found that among the FTSE 100 tech companies, only 3.5% of board members were from global majority backgrounds, and the representation of Black women specifically was not provided. This for me is my personal lived experience. I was a NED, I was a director, and literally I was the only one on those boards. I didn't see anyone else that looked like me, and there were times that was a bit of a hindrance, because sometimes I had so much to say, but it was difficult to try and get a word in. But that was the culture then. Hopefully, there are some changes, but this is our reality. This is something that we were dealing with on a daily basis, especially when I had to go to these meetings, and I wasn't able to add value. Another issue was dealing with pay gaps as well, especially when it comes to Black women. When we try to look for this information, it's very, very limited. And I find this quite alarming because when I look at my role as a Black leader, tech leader, I knew that my white counterparts were getting a lot more than me. So we know that gender and racial pay gaps in tech sector persist. We know that. When we refer to the Chartered Institute of Personal and Development and the University of Bath, women in technology and telecommunication roles in the UK earn, on average, 9% less than men. It's really important to note that while these data points indicate a lack of representation for Black women in the UK tech industry, more specific data is needed to fully capture the extent of the underrepresentation. I know that efforts are being made to address this issue through diversity initiative. Even we are leading on the BME digital inclusion to raise 1 million global majority women and girls in STEM and Web3. And our initiative includes the BME digital inclusion mentoring, which we've run across the UK schools. We're also leading on tech events. We are also doing networking events, apprenticeships, internships to try and close that gap. We want to promote inclusive workplace cultures that will help bridge the digital gap and increase opportunities for Black women in the UK tech sector. When we look at the importance of diversity and inclusion in AI development and its impact on society, when we were developing our BME Digital Inclusion app, we wanted to definitely consider ethical issues and wanted to involve diverse perspectives and input from underrepresented groups, especially when we were developing this app. So we wanted to ensure that we promoted fair representation in addressing the historical underrepresentation of marginalized groups in technology development, because we felt that this will help to mitigate biases and ensure that the app caters to a broader range of users. So our app was mainly on, to empower young people to eat healthily, but we wanted to ensure that they were involved. We wanted to include their diverse perspective because we thought that it will help to improve the user's experience and overall functionality of the app. We wanted to avoid biases and discrimination because we didn't want it to. We understand that these systems can have the potential to perpetuate biases and discrimination if it's not properly trained and evaluated. So by having these young people input during the development process of our BME Digital Inclusion app, we were able to raise awareness of potential biases and work towards mitigating them. So for us then, the reason why our experience in developing this BME Digital Inclusion app, why we wanted to include these representation was important. And, I had an issue with AI, especially when, ChatGPT came out, simply because from when I studied it in 2005, I was really excited about it. But when I started to see how the damage that AI could do if it wasn't used correctly, I was really concerned. I was also concerned with, especially around ChatGPT, when I found out that the people that were designing, so now they started to include Black women. Was it Kenyan women who were inputting the information, and the harm of the data that caused these women. I was a bit distraught by it. But we just need to be mindful in how we use information, how we collate it, how we collect it as well. So, so for me, there are some positive and there's some negative use of AI. And for me, when I look at the positive impacts of D&I in AI, I think about some really good examples when I think about fairness in the criminal justice, having facial recognition algorithms. So let's say, for instance, we have seen that there can be a higher rates for women and people with darker skin tones, yeah, and and this can cause a this can cause an issue. So when we include diverse teams during the development process, we can mitigate this, and this can help to identify and rectify any biases, unconscious, yeah, or unrealistic, ensuring that we have fair treatment in areas like law enforcement and the criminal justice system. In the context of when we're using AI in car insurance and loan application, the algorithms that rely solely on historical data can perpetuate discriminatory practice. But by involving diverse perspective, algorithms can be designed to consider a broader range of factors and provide fair and equitable decisions to all applicants. And this is the same thing that we did when we were developing our BME Digital Inclusion Healthy Eating app. Another good one is when we train the AI model using a diverse data set that includes information from various cultural backgrounds. So in this case, it was dietary preferences. We looked at the socio-economic context just to avoid biases or exclusionary recommendation. And we found that was really key. It really made our app quite interesting, the experience really fun and interesting because we were including people. We ensure that our app uses inclusive language, imagery, and illustration. So, for example, we knew that our app was based, the young people that we were using most of them came from Newham. And when we looked at that demographics, we had a high percentage of Muslim. That was the Muslim community. We had some Afro-Caribbean community. So we wanted to make sure that we included the different types of foods. And that was really interesting. We learned a lot and we were able to include those different groups of people. And they felt empowered, and it was more fun trying to understand what they liked and what they disliked, what were they used to at home. We wanted to localize their experience. The negative impact of lack of D&I inclusion in AI, and this is something that sitting on the Newham advisory group, I'm always cautious about policing and surveillance. And I'm really someone that talks about the oppressive algorithms because I know it can perpetuate racial profiling and exacerbate discriminatory practice in law enforcement. So, for example, I mentioned this already, we've got facial recognition technologies have been shown to disproportionately misidentify and target people of colour, leading to potential civil rights violation. Another issue I spoke about biases in credit scoring. So when we think about banks and loans application, bias algorithms can result in certain communities, including marginalized and minority groups, where they've been unfairly denied loans or offered unfavorable terms due to historical disparity or systemic discrimination. Now, this is something that we really, really need to think about, when we're considering, these AI tools, understanding who are the people who are creating these tools or these codes, and, what are their, how are we making sure that we are including everyone? Yeah, how are we taking into consideration and we're not being biased unconsciously? Because algorithms can inadvertently perpetuate existing societal inequalities if they are developed without diverse input. It is important that we have groups who are underrepresented part of this process of inputting data. Yeah, because if not, this will lead to disparity in access to opportunities, resources, and services, exacerbating existing social division. So it's really essential to recognize that diverse, inclusive AI development alone cannot solve all societal challenges, but it is a crucial step towards mitigating biases and creating more equitable AI systems. So to address these issues, we must foster diverse teams, like I've said already, and I'm keeping repeating myself, ethical guidelines. And this is something where, as I was a UN Pulse AI, I was doing some work for the UN Pulse as the AI advisor, leading on the developing the ethical framework for Ghana. And one of the guidelines that we suggested for the framework was that we wanted them to prioritize fairness, transparency, and accountability in AI development and deployment. Yeah, I didn't want them to just use people from outside of Ghana to just come and just put forward this ethical framework. I wanted them to really consider getting people from the community to be part of that process. Challenges in recruiting and retaining Black women in tech. So we've looked at, the negative and positive impact of D&I in AI, and what does that mean? So when we talk about challenges in recruiting and retaining Black women in tech, it's something that we really need to consider because it really presents some challenges. So when we look at, limited representation, so that's the lack of representation of women in the tech industry, can definitely create a sense of isolation and exclusion. And, I mentioned before when I was in my role as a governor and as a NED, there was no real role models for me or any mentors for me to share any experiences. And it was challenging to really see how I could navigate in this space and how I could really fit in. In fact, I didn't fit in. It was like I felt like I just felt excluded, and this is the same how it will fall for women in these environments if we don't take in consideration how to incorporate or involve them. Another thing is the unconscious biases during the recruitment process, with the gatekeepers who hinder the inclusion of Black women. And so when I talk about these biases, definitely will affect resume screening, interview evaluation, and promotion decisions. And I've been a victim of this, especially in the education sector. There were times when it was a challenge. It was a challenge being promoted, and I had to go for different jobs elsewhere just to get to the next ladder, just to move up the ladder. And that came with different challenges because I had to get used to another organization, the people, and constantly, trying to prove myself. These biases definitely perpetuated the underrepresentation of us Black women in these industries, simply because when I moved to the next organization, I didn't see anyone. It was always me, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to do this again and again and again. Stereotypes and cultural barriers can impact the recruitment and retention of Black women too, especially if negative stereotypes may influence the perceptions of technical abilities, limiting opportunities and career progression. And so these cultural barriers, such as lack of recognition and understanding of diverse experiences and perspectives, can create an overall welcoming environment. Yeah, and what that means is just feeling excluded, like how I felt, not feeling, valued, not feeling that, we're good enough. So these stereotypes, behavior needs to be dismantled. Another issue around the challenges in, recruiting and retaining, Black women is we feel at times limited access to educational and professional development opportunities, especially in the tech industry. So factors such as socioeconomic disparities, inadequate access to quality education, and limited networking opportunities can really hinder the ability to enter and advance in the field. And this is why the BME Digital Inclusion Program is really important, especially with our up and coming event on the 11th of October, where we will be hosting networking events, opportunities with tech companies that are going to, showcase what it looks like to work in their organization and to meet some key people, so the young women will be able to improve their networking skills, know what questions to ask, develop their confidence, their digital skill set. And this is where, it will help to dismantle issues around support, lack of support networks. Yeah. So, because we feel that these support networks, like what we're putting forward, plays a crucial role in providing guidance and advice and opportunities for growth. So, addressing these challenges really requires a proactive measure and initiative. So, we champion and promote digital diversity and inclusion, and we expect tech companies to prioritize diversity and inclusion in their recruitment strategies and actively seek out talent from underrepresented communities. So set diversity targets, implement inclusive hiring practices, and create diverse interview panels that can help address unconscious bias. I mean, recently we just recruited a young woman from an underrepresented community to work in our organization, and we ensured that the interviewing panel was diverse, and it really helped because that young woman felt confident. She was able to explain herself and be able to speak freely. She had a voice, and she was able to showcase her digital skills and what she understood about about digital transformation, about the new tools that she could use, and she was able to speak that freely. And that's what Academy Achieve is about. We're about promoting D&I. We feel that it's really important, and as well as doing that, we are into establishing and fostering supportive community. So we do onboarding, with our onboarding, we use our networks of key tech leaders to come and speak to our Black women in tech. They come and also offer mentorship and give us resources, and this helps to create a bigger, diverse network. And it's good because our tech companies can dip into that talent pool and be able to take back, yes, a return on their investment, because they've given to us, they've supported us financially, they've supported us in terms of training, in terms of collaborative projects, and now they've helped us to build a supportive community, and now they're able to dip back in and get that talent. We also feel that to address these challenges is about education. So offering educational programs like scholarships and initiatives to improve access to quality tech education. Training, we feel, can really help bridge the skills gap and increase opportunities for Black women in the field. But there's a bit of a caveat here. Not only because they say, especially when you've got to a point where you've gone through so much, sometimes you can't really, not that you don't see the value of education, but it can be a bit much when you've got to deal with your everyday life, you've got bills to pay. But we don't just offer just education, we offer a bit more. Yeah, we support in terms of the whole entire being. So it's a holistic approach, the BME Digital Inclusion Program. Creating inclusive work cultures, we feel that organizations should really cultivate an inclusive work culture. And this is by providing equal opportunities, addressing biases and stereotypes, and fostering an environment where diverse voices and perspectives are valued and heard. I cannot stress this enough, how important it is to empower women to share and to be, because they will become, when you give them that opportunity, they will become the agent of change for your organization, and they will be able to share that within their community. Yeah. Regular measuring and diversity and inclusion metrics, reviewing your progress and holding companies accountable for their commitment to diversity can drive meaningful change. And that's what we want, is meaningful change. I feel that once we address these challenges, will require a collaborative effort involving tech companies, educational institutions, industry associations, and policymakers to create more inclusive and equitable tech industry for Black women in the UK. So, information technology and businesses are becoming inextricably interwoven. I don't think anybody can talk meaningfully about one without talking about the other. Fran Sango. It's a quote. I like using quotes. So, in conclusion, for us, AI is a powerful tool, but if we don't use it ethically and we don't stamp out the unconscious, unrealistic biases, we are going to continue to live in a society where people will feel excluded. But using the AI tool for good, I believe that we will be able to give women, in particular Black women, a voice. They will be able to add value, and it will have an economical impact, positive one, to your organization. Thank you for your time. If you want to get in contact with us, there's our details. And again, thank you for listening to my talk.